Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching Today I Found Out, and in the video today, mutual exploitation, Hollywood and the US military. Movies have been made in Hollywood since it was incorporated into the city of Los Angeles in 1910. These early flicks often featured military equipment in the background, such as for an air show. Nonetheless, prior to granting access to its assets, the military ensured that each scene and film reflected its values and presented its soldiers in a positive way. As the nation entered the Great Wars, the need to project American power and resolve became paramount. Also satisfying the public's desire for high-quality entertainment, military advisors helped film industry professionals make realistic yet positive films to support war efforts for both World War I and World War II. In the lull between the two conflicts, the relationship between Hollywood and the military became fixed with the 1927 flick Wings. With a cast that included 3,000 infantry and featured US planes in the backdrop of a story of two pilots trying to win the It Girl Clara Bow, Wings not only won the Best Picture Oscar that year, but it showed how cooperation between the Corps and Hollywood provided huge benefits to both. Hollywood created an authentic military experience and enjoyed commercial and critical success, and the military had what for them was essentially a great recruitment film displayed in theaters all around the country. During and after World War II, Hollywood war movies nearly universally featured brave men whose causes always succeeded, even if they perished, and notable titles included They Were Expendable, 1945, Sands of Iwo Jima, 1949, The Flying Leathernecks, 1951, Stalag 17, 1953, The Bridges at Toko-Ri, 1954, The Longest Day, 1962, and The Great Escape from 1963. Likewise, films like From Here to Eternity, 1953, Mr. Roberts, 1955, South Pacific, 1958, and Operation Petticoat, 1959, put a positive human face on the war and its servicemen. And it is precisely this human face that led author Lawrence Seward to coin the phrase mutual exploitation. According to Seward, "When I was getting my film degree, it suddenly occurred to me that people in the US had never seen the US lose a war, and when President Johnson said we can go into Vietnam and win, they believed him because they'd seen 50 years of war movies that were positive." So important was this relationship that since the middle of the century, the Pentagon has had a permanent liaison stationed in Hollywood, and until 1989, that man was Donald Baruch. Having earned his chops as a theater producer in New York, Baruch was given the final script approval on movies that needed military equipment and personnel, and he asserted his authority. He insisted that the image projected of the armed forces and its men be clean-cut and upright. After 4 decades at the post, Baruch was replaced by Phil Strubb, who had studied film at the University of Southern California before developing a speciality in making movies of medical procedures. He eventually made his way into the Army's Medical Research Unit and worked as a Navy videographer before moving into the entertainment liaison role. Today, however, Strubb is not alone in sifting through scripts to determine which pass muster. Service members from each branch are now stationed in Los Angeles, where they spend their days studying television and film scripts. Together with Strubb and the upper brass, their contributions include everything from pitching ideas to ensuring the right equipment is employed. For example, the Secretary of the Navy was reported to have persuaded NCIS to do an episode on that branch's efforts to stop sexual assault. Likewise, Strubb has claimed that he convinced the producers of Jurassic Park 3 to rewrite their script to remove the use of the Thunderbolt warplane, the A-10, which was so overpowering that in Strubb's estimation, it would have only generated sympathy for the dinosaurs. Of course, many war movies are made without military help, and while some titles should be expected, like Apocalypse Now from 1979 and The Thin Red Line from 1998, others might be more of a surprise. For example, Help with Independence Day from 1996 was nixed because the invading aliens' overwhelming technological superiority made the military appear impotent and/or inept. As a result, its battle equipment was produced with methods such as CGI, as were some of the military crew in Zero Dark 30 from 2012. It should be noted that although the military gains a huge benefit from its positive portrayal in films, it doesn't spend any extra taxpayer money on these projects. If the producers are directing personnel and equipment outside of normal operations, they pay the costs of the operation, which can range from $1,000 an hour for a tank to $25,000 an hour for an F-15. However, if all they want to do is film typical activity that was happening anyway, once approved, they can do that for free. So I really hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for brand new videos every day of the week. Also, I've got another channel, it's called Biographics. It's biographies of notable people from the present day as well as history, from Elon Musk to Osama bin Laden. Check it out through the icon on the screen now, but if you want to watch something else right now, why not check out another Today I Found Out video or a Biographics video over there on the right. And as always, thank you for watching.